Hello, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Jacob Hartman, 1228 Anchor Ave, Beechwood, and I am a freshman at High School South. I am standing in front of you tonight to not only share my personal opinions and views on the Common Core state standards, but to also tell you what I've heard from many of my fellow peers and teachers on the subject. These past years, I've spent by researching these new standards and experiencing them every day in school. Due to this, I have paid very close attention on how the teachers actually teach, how they conduct themselves in regard to high-stakes testing. I don't feel like my teachers have always been truthful about the impact of standardized testing. Some has told us that state testing is not a big deal, and they've demonstrated that it wasn't. But others were different. They told us that these scores would affect us later in life, and constantly prepared us by giving us massive workloads totally unrelated to what we were supposed to be doing in class. This appalled me. I know for a fact that not only are our universities not asking at admission what your scores were on one of these particular standardized tests, but that there are many reputable colleges and universities that will allow you to both opt out of ACT and ACT scores. Because they realize that this is not a true measurement of a student's future success in the world. As you can see, I am wearing a Princeton University shirt. For 3 summers now, I've enrolled in computer programming courses there and have been successful in all my ventures. I am more than positive that if I do decide to attend Princeton, that they will not be asking me for my PARCC scores. I am lucky. Currently I'm a straight A student, so I know that this test will probably not be difficult for me. But let me ask you, what about the rest of my peers that do not take high-stakes testing well and have constant anxiety thinking that this test will determine their future? As I can see, my research has also proven that this test does one thing and one thing only, which maintains the status quo. But everyone is different. We all learn at our own pace and at different levels. The Common Core attempts to not see us as individuals, but instead to have us conform to standards that are unrealistic and unproven. What I'm asking of this Board of Education is that you truly take a look at the new information, in which Pearson, the maker of the PARCC exam, is currently under investigation by the FBI for corrupt hierarchy, inside trading with Apple and the Los Angeles School District, and wrongful termination of employees. Pearson is also on the verge of bankruptcy, with a 53% drop in their stock and their operating profit down 45% for the first 2 quarters of 2014. The Pearson Foundation, now closed, was forced to pay $7.7 million in fines to the New York State after it had broken state laws by generating business for the company unlawfully. So I ask of you, Board of Education and Mr. Healy, how can students and parents feel confident in a company that is not even meeting ethical standards and is corrupt? I hope that as a student of Toms River Regional Schools, that you will take into consideration my concerns that are shared by me and many of my fellow peers and teachers. Our hopes is that you will be able to do what you were hired to do, look at the best interests of your students. Thank you.
I think maybe thank you. I'm very pleased. I can tell you how pleased I am with your presentation. Very progressive. There are millions more like you out there. There are a lot of them in our. I know there are a lot of them in our school already. I don't know how to answer all of what you brought up because you really had very succinctly, I might add, brought up many topics. Many of the things that you're questioning and the problems that you're seeing affect us locally, but are so far above us. I would encourage you to write that letter, a letter similar to what you just presented to this board, and send it to Commissioner Hespy, because he is saying things about Common Core and in the PARCC test that are not congruent with what you just presented. And I think you could go as far as sending it to the governor, because I think there are many people in the community in Toms River and elsewhere in New Jersey who are questioning what is happening. I think one clarification I have is that there is a difference between the Common Core, that's one issue. Most people would agree that that's a pretty large issue, and the PARCC test. They're interrelated, and yet they're separate. So there are some people who are more enamored with Common Core because we've had it many, many years, some sort of standard, but not so enamored with the park because of the way the test is given, because of the myriad of other problems with it. So, but I would encourage you to continue. I don't know if anything can be done tonight to answer your questions. I know that our superintendent goes to roundtable, he goes to state meetings. I know that the board members are going to various meetings. I went to several in October. Just went to one last week. It wasn't on PARCC or Common Core, but school boards is providing us with information in their emails to us. So I want to, again, thank you for bringing that to us, and I'm sure that a letter to some of these people for a young man like you might resonate with them. Thank you. Any other comments from the public, please? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, my name is Kathleen DeLacio, 896 Nantucket Court, Toms River. And I'm actually following up with a statement that I had made at the last meeting in November, and it has to do with something you do have control over as far as the PARCC test is concerned. My concern was my son, because I refused the test, and the answer that I got at the time was that there wasn't going to be any concessions made because the state didn't require you to make any kind of special arrangements or even accommodate the children whatsoever whose parents chose to refuse the test. And I'm just asking if your position here remains the same.
I'm going to defer that to Mr. Healy since he's in conversation with the State Department.
Sure, Mr. Alessio. At the time, that was November 18th, you had asked me what our position was. And as of this meeting, the position remains the same. Now we have, it's December, the first test is April. The PARCC process is evolving. I was at roundtable this morning, had a similar discussion. Other county superintendents have made position statements regarding their positions as a county in terms of providing an alternate educational program for students. As I mentioned in the last meeting, the guidance is all here. And the guidance to districts is that we're not required to provide an alternate educational setting for students that refuse to take the PARCC. But let me put it to you in proper perspective. So we could have 3 students, or we could have 300 or 400 students. We don't know. There are parents such as yourself that have come out throughout the state that have voiced their concerns, as Jacob has, and we continue to work with the folks in the Department of Education as this is still evolving in terms of the information we're receiving. So the requirement for a district such as ours, where you have 9 days of testing per student, per grade level, twice. You have the March test, and then you also have the May test. Thousands of students, AM and PM sessions, where we have to hire substitutes to cover either the AM and the PM, because we have teachers that are administering the tests with their students. Right now, for a district to, not having a crystal ball, to say that we're going to provide an alternate educational program for an unknown amount of students, we can't do that right now. What does that entail depends on the number of students that may or may not take the test. So right now, if you can imagine, the process of planning and preparing for this, administering of this test is cumbersome. It requires a lot of planning. The scheduling, we've been given recent deadlines as recently as last week to have information uploaded to NJ Smart by December 16th. That information gets uploaded to Pearson, and by December 16th, we have to have all our schedules in place, our testing schedules, our administering schedules. So, just so I'm giving you background on what that entails. So, as of this meeting, the answer is right now that the district will not be providing an alternate education program for those students that choose not to take the test.
Okay, well, I just find that alarming and dismaying that that's how we are going to be treated, because I understand that you are not required to make any kind of accommodations or be helpful in any way to parents who are exercising their constitutional rights and their parental rights to keep their children away from any curriculum or standards they deem inappropriate or harmful. But it does not mean that you cannot. It does not mean you cannot. And I have resolutions from other townships who are respecting the rights of parents and they're making, and I can read it to you.
Well, I've seen the resolutions, but let me qualify what I said, and just to answer what you said, that we're not going to accommodate students, and we're not going to, I think something to the effect that we're not necessarily concerned about the students. That's just not the case. Right now, as of December, keep in mind the test is in the spring, most districts, including the districts in Monmouth County and the districts I spoke to in Ocean County as recently as today, we had a discussion. They're not providing alternate education programs for students. What is that going to look like if a student shows up to school? What are we going to do? We're certainly not going to throw a child out on the street or if a parent refuses to come. So we do have to come up with strategies to address those issues. And it doesn't look like doing things that are just unfair or unreasonable to students or those community members.
Okay.
So I just want to make sure that that's clear.
Okay, yeah, because I was just confused because
Sure.
at the last meeting, you had stated that you're not required to, so which
Correct.
means this is what you choose not to do. So I was
Correct.
just a little confused. But I mean, you know the resolutions, but maybe everyone else doesn't know the
Yeah,
resolutions.
there's 2 towns in the entire state of New Jersey that came up with resolutions, and they really are referred to that they're not going to take punitive action. One of the districts that describes how they're going to step more that they're going to provide some kind of an alternate educational setting.
Yes. In an effort to provide guidance to parents and guardians, it's Delram actually, Township Board of Education issued a statement. The guidance acknowledges the various sides of the issue and numerous contexts that administering these assessments presents. And their resolution was, it recognizes that some parents choose to have their children refuse to take one or more of the New Jersey Department of Education standardized tests. So now it is their policy that instances of test refusal should be met with educationally appropriate, not punitive responses, including alternative settings, activities, unique to a specific grade span wherever possible for students that refuse to take the assessments. And it was also resolved that is the policy of Delran Board of Education to consider multiple measures when determining student placement for future years. So I would just hope that Toms River School System would work with parents, taxpayers, and most importantly, students to provide something for these kids, because at the last meeting it was stated also that my son would be told to leave. So I know you cleared that up, but I was just wanting to resolve this. Thank you for your time.
If you have questions or comments from the public, yes, ma'am.
I've said this before, I admire the people who sit up here and give up your time. I admire the administrators, whether you think it or not. But I think it's a disgrace that government has hijacked our education. Teachers went to school to teach children, not to teach a test. And I don't think there's anybody in Trenton, in Ocean County, in the United States that knows more about the children than the teachers who deal with them and the parents who help raise them. There must be something we can do to come together to allow our teachers to teach our children. The government has hijacked education. It comes down to money. You play by my rules or you don't play, and it's wrong. And I think every one of you should stand up and fight for our children. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Yes.
Still 130 Southview Boulevard. I know we've spoken in the past, and regarding the delayed school start times, and went most recently to a committee meeting. Going forward, I did want to thank the board, as I started to say earlier, when there was a little bit of a larger crowd, the kids were here. But thank you for paying attention to us, listening to us, hearing us out, and seemingly working towards getting a solution to this. I think that's the right way to work through this. I think it's the right thing for